forget the idea that lifting weights is only about bigger muscles or a bigger physique. New research suggests that just 90 minutes to 2 hours of strength training each week could help you live longer. Now, a major US study tracking nearly 150,000 people over 3 decades found that regular resistance training was linked to a lower risk of dying from heart disease, stroke and even dementia. Well, we thought we'd like to drill down into this a little bit further. I'm joined on the programme this morning by Diane Cooper, who is a clinical exercise physiologist. Morning, Diane.
Hi, good morning, Sally-Ann.
Well, good news, I'm glad to say. I have to say, since I got the post-40 mark and entered that particular decades, that the strength training very much came onto my regime. But it seems that I'm actually on the right track.
Absolutely, and that is great to hear. So, for sure, all adults over the age of 40 really need to be doing strength training twice a week. Women in particular, because in kind of perimenopause and post-menopause, we get a lot of health-related problems from not doing it. But just to talk about muscle, like your intro there, when we think of strength training and we think of muscle, and yes, it absolutely makes us strong. That is one of the benefits. But I think in terms of drilling down, like what people mightn't know is muscle is a very active endocrine organ itself. So when you use it, for example, in strength training, basically what it does is it tells your muscle to produce a whole host of things called myokines. And it's like your own little inbuilt pharmacy for health. So it'll produce all of these hormones and they communicate with organs and tissues all over the body and they help us control our blood sugar level, they help us control our heart health and stuff like that. Um, which obviously helps us, it helps us to reduce blood pressure and all of the kind of big health problems we're getting at the moment, is particularly in Ireland. But one of the ones that people mightn't be aware of is how good it actually is for your brain. I don't know, have you made that kind of connection yourself in your strength training to date?
Well, absolutely. I feel that when I'm not doing it, there's a huge difference in my mindset and my motivation to get things done.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what it does is, so these little, they're called myokines that the muscle produces, right? So it communicates with things all over the body. One of the wonderful organs it communicates with is the brain. And it tells it to do certain things. And just to give you an example, it would one example is it tells the brain to produce something called BDNF, or brain derived neurotrophic factor. Now that's a bit of a mouthful. These are kind of things I would have studied in my PhD, but so that does lots of things. Some of the things it does is it helps us support the survival and the growth and the maintenance of the neurons in our brain. So it kind of acts like a fertilizer for the brain. So particularly as we're moving through middle age and into older age, it helps us to not have issues with memory, with cognitive decline. So it's kind of a prevention, very much a prevention for things like dementia and Alzheimer's. But it also does things like promotes our mental health. It helps us with happy hormones. It helps us to regulate ourselves. It helps us with positive mood and reduction in things like depression. It affects motivation, all of the stuff that you're talking about there. So absolutely, strength training makes us stronger, and it has a million benefits in that regard. But there's a lot of things going on under the surface that are so good for our health and our well-being, keeping us functionally active, keeping us free from cognitive decline, which of course is really important. So it does so many things.
Well, here's the bit that I like in this particular piece of research, because they found a clear sweet spot when it comes to how long we should be doing this. They say people who did around 90 to 120 minutes of strength training a week, or roughly an hour and a half to 2 hours, had about a 13% lower risk of dying from any cause than those who did none. So it's not a case that you have to be slogging away 5, 6, 7 days a week.
Not a bit. So we're talking about health here versus performance, which is a different thing altogether. So the guidelines are 2 strength training sessions per week. You must target all of the major muscle groups in the body. To do that, it'll take you about 40 minutes per session. And that's exactly why, like, the Irish government only last year, now obviously we've been, as a physiologist, we've been dealing with this a very long time, kind of globally, but in the last year, the Irish government have been really, really strong on putting out these recommendations. 2 sessions a week for adults for strength training is an absolute game changer for health. You don't need anything fancy. You can do it from home. Start slowly, light weights, build up from there, and you don't need to make it complicated.
Do you find that there is more people coming forward looking for advice when it comes to this, Diane? I mean, as we mentioned, a lot of people, I suppose, since COVID tended to jump online and do a lot of things from at home. I'm guilty of that. It's just my lifestyle with kids and work and everything. I find that if I'm trying to get out somewhere at specific times, it's really difficult. But do you find in the gym setting and your location that more people are coming forward to look for advice, and it's something that they haven't done before?
Yeah, exactly. So just for us, exactly that. So I'm in the same situation as you. Ours are lots of people with young kids and very high demands at the moment. So post COVID, my whole business and industry changed. So we moved from kind of being in person to completely online in EduFIT. Well, almost completely online. So people are trying to do time efficient sessions from home, and that's great. But in the last few years in particular, it is so wonderful to hear the change in knowledge around strength training. In particular, well, possibly because a lot of the work that we're doing in women's health, but there's, just take, for example, again, women in perimenopause or postmenopause. So the stats in Ireland would be 1 in 2 women have osteoporosis, which is ferociously high. And the really big contributors to that are the hormonal changes we get from the age of 50 on, inactivity, not doing strength training. And there are other factors always, but they're kind of some of the main things. So if you think of that, 50% of our entire female population have debilitating osteoporosis, which we can prevent and or treat and manage with resistance training. So there's a huge movement now, a huge awareness of this. People trying to learn how to do it safely with special considerations. For example, if you have those types of issues. So I'm 24 years working in the exercise medicine space. And in the last, I would say 5 years, we have seen the most interest in strength training, and it's absolutely fantastic to see it.
But I suppose the key part of the advice there then is, Diane, even though a lot of people are doing stuff from home and online, it is important to have some kind of guidance that you don't injure yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you're lifting weights, right? So obviously you have that additional stress. And while, everything is easy when you know how, it's a very good idea to get some advice when you're starting off, because as with all types of exercise has a million benefits. But if we're not doing it right and under the right guidance, there is always that increased kind of potential risk of injury. And of course, if you start off as a beginner and maybe you're swinging heavy weights, obviously that can lead to a potential increase in risk. But anyone who's coached in this area is well used to dealing with complete beginners, some of whom have lots of clinical stuff going on, some of whom have very different levels of mobility, flexibility, all sorts of stuff. And that's what the trained professionals do. That's why we have spent so much time investing in training in this space, so that you get the maximum benefits from your strength training and obviously don't do yourself any harm.
Finally, Diane, any advice for those of us who are full of the best intentions but sometimes struggle when it comes to consistency?
That's the worldwide dilemma, Sally-Ann. Yeah. Absolutely, right? So just really quickly, a couple of things. Find what suits you. If time is your biggest barrier, well, then maybe initially you might need to do some home-based stuff, but grab a friend and you do it together. The other side of it is maybe you need to put yourself under a little bit of pressure to attend something in person, even if it's only once a week with a group of people, and let the coach provide you initially with the motivation. So you really have to find what suits you. But the big one, as always, is to find a goal. Pick a goal, or get a coach to help you pick a goal. Set your training plan specifically for that. Work towards it. Have your event, your goal, whatever it is, and then you push on from there. But certainly, like, if you don't go it alone, like if you're struggling, there are professionals that have invested their careers in helping people with training and motivation. And at different points in life, we all need a little bit of help and support. And definitely, if it's available to you, I would say just get that help if you need it. But you're not on your own. It's the worldwide problem. And, you know, surround yourself with the people and the environment that you need to help you get there.
Okay, well, I'm on it, Diane. I'm on it. Thanks so much. Great advice as always. Diane Cooper, their clinical exercise physiologist from